Hello, friends, and
Right.
what?
Sorry, I know we're starting it.
Yeah, we're starting it. Hello, friends, and welcome to another video. A very highly requested video. Today we are doing a Q&A with Coach Will.
Yep.
So, Will's been my coach since what, like October? November?
October.
Yeah.
Yep.
So for a minute, but he coached me through my whole prep. So we both asked on our Instagrams
Yes.
for you guys to ask us questions just about like anything, nutrition, training, my prep in general.
Mindset, pretty much anything.
Yeah. So we're just going to go through. We literally got so many. There's no way we're going to answer all of them. So we're just going to go through some of like the FAQs and good ones and
Go from there, see.
Go from there. If you guys want to drop more questions below, you can, and we can like do these more often too.
Yeah, we can do multiple parts. So.
Yeah, we're both in San Diego. Go St. Jim. So we can keep these videos coming. So this one was highly requested. Why does Will choose to have his clients follow a meal plan versus macros?
Yes. So the reason why I have my clients follow meal plan versus macros is for mainly prep reasons. There are not enough variables known through macros, if it fits your macros. Whereas a meal plan, it's just so easy to troubleshoot. So an example would be like, let's say a client has gut issues, GI tract issues, an intolerance. A lot of times with macros, you're not going to be able to figure out what the root cause of the issue is. Now with meal plan, you can almost get it almost first try every time. Can go by how they feel after a specific meal and troubleshoot from there. One of the biggest things I would say is the peaking process. And take Lexi, for example. We knew exactly how our body's going to respond on the daily and go from there. And that's kind of the approach I take with all my clients. So lifestyle, I do macros. I do both, meal plan and macros, but prep is always meal plan.
Yeah, and I would say like that was the biggest thing I noticed because my last prep was on macros, and this time it was like so easy to troubleshoot, like if it was like a recovery issue or like a digestion issue or whatever it might be. And like I always knew how my body was gonna respond, and it honestly just like made things so much easier because it's like even just little things like fiber and like food volume and stuff like that. Meal timing
huge.
Are consistent every day, and just like with prep, and we were just talking about this, like being flexible and like balance, like screw that, honestly. Like the goal is to come in the best you possibly can, and so it definitely just like made it way easier to do that.
And you don't have to think.
Yeah.
Yes, you don't have to think at all really with a meal plan. It's there and you just perform. Another thing I'll touch on is the aspect of nutrient timing. We talked about meal timing a little bit, but nutrient timing as well. I notice with macros, a lot of people tend to hoard their macros towards the night. It's just not the way to go if you're on prep, because it's not what you eat, it's how you use what you eat, if that makes sense.
It really matters, especially
so pre-workout nutrition, intra-workout nutrition. I have some clients who do fasted cardio. I have some clients who do post-cardio. I have some clients who do cardio after meal one.
Yeah, so I would say it gives you a lot more control over like different variables and stuff too.
That's what it comes down to.
And so that allows him to make better adjustments. And the thing I'll say too is like I think a lot of people, when food gets low, it gets really easy to like volume eat or eat a lot of stuff that like isn't going to do well with your digestive system or is full of like artificial whatever. And I know that like I looked a lot better and a lot tighter this time around just because I was sticking to like whole nutrient dense foods. I wasn't volume eating. I wasn't eating a ton of like artificial bullshit. And like that makes a big difference with prep too.
Yeah.
So, is there... Why pancakes and eggs versus other carb and fat sources for my bulk? So, I wouldn't call it a bulk, but like just filled out going into my second show.
Yeah, so the way I like to do things is I like to have everyone ready early. That way, so I can kind of put them through a peaking process beforehand to kind of see how much they can handle. And we did that with Lexi before what was supposed to be her first show that ended up getting canceled. And we kind of got the threshold to where she could handle before, she started looking a little bit softer, a little too soft. So we went into kind of a reverse after that and then dropped her back down, not even super low, just enough to, get that hardness back. And when we went to reverse the process, the carb threshold the food threshold that she was able to handle, the first time she went like above and beyond that, which we did not expect at all. Her metabolism just started firing. So as far as, why pancakes and eggs versus other carbs, strictly I had to keep her full. And stuff like cream of rice and rice just wasn't doing it. If you're familiar with fat and carb sources, fat slow down the digestion of carbs. So having these meals with, you could call them dirty meals, with the fats, a bunch of fats and a bunch of carbs, were able to hold her over for longer, so she just wasn't rolling through the food. With that being said, I have maybe only ever had to do that with one other person, and I would not advise to carb up on pancakes for 3 days straight.
Yeah. It was a very abnormal situation.
Yeah, and why we didn't use another source of food, we noticed, and this goes back to, the meal plan. We noticed through certain refeeds, we tried a bunch of different refeeds, and over the course of our prep, and we could pinpoint which ones were working with her digestive system, which ones were not. And every time we give her pancakes, she looked better the next day. So we're gonna stick to what we know, and that's why we use the pancakes.
Yeah. How do you structure your individual workout / working sets, etc.? Those leg days. Yeah. So Will trains me through legs once a week. Mm-hmm. And you've also written some of my training programs. And you do training for a lot of people.
Yeah, I do training for a lot of people. I do training for a lot of people, for a lot of competitors who aren't even with me, who just want my training aspect. And the answer is everybody's different. I will say I don't do a lot of volume. I'm an advocate of a higher weight, lower volume. You could call it the Dorian Yates or the DC style training, where you're just hammering heavy working sets. And take Lexi, for example, whatever workouts, a leg day for her might only have 9 sets. And those are 9 real sets. So she might actually do 20 with her warm-up sets, but her working sets are only, roughly 9. And we don't really do much, plyos, as people would say, or band. We do resistance bands, but you won't see us using like booty bands and stuff like that. We like to structure it. Normally you start with a hamstring, and then going into the heavy compound movements and staying, within maybe a 6 to 11 rep range.
We literally stick to, I would say, like 4 or 5 exercises.
Oh yeah, if someone can get past 4 to 5 exercises with me, I'm not doing my job.
Yeah, and it's like 2 to 3 working sets, but the working sets are brutal, past failure. That's why he's there, so I fail, and he helps me get some extra. So it works.
Gotta do it.
Yeah. Was it harder to prep on quarantine than not being on quarantine? Did you adjust a lot? So I think that there are pieces, and you can definitely chime in here, but there were definitely pieces that were easier during quarantine and pieces that were harder. I think the piece that was easier, just prep wise, is there's not a lot of other stuff going on. So just for me, being someone who I really wanted to make sure I was still prioritizing my friends and my relationships and other stuff, it was I didn't have that. So it actually I think prep kept me sane during quarantine, honestly. I think it did for a lot of like fitness people too, honestly, just because it was like I can literally just focus on like getting the training in that I could, eating my food, like there wasn't much other like distraction. But as far as it being harder, I think we definitely had to adjust
Oh yeah.
a lot. I know for me, like recovery was an issue, and like we had to like utilize running and like figuring that out, and like Will definitely had to adjust my like training and cardio and nutrition because like just the circumstances of quarantine were different, and then also just making sure that like being in a deficit and obviously wanting to retain muscle, like just really making sure that I was making the most of like what I had in terms of being able to work out, i.e. like for most of it no gym equipment. So
Just playing off that, adjusting what we had to adjust. Like she said, she had to do a lot of different things for cardio. Obviously, keep her in a deficit because her workouts were not as hard. And with that came, her recovery just wasn't as good. So she was checking almost daily. And we were, titrating cardio. She would have days where I would just have her take a couple of days off cardio or skip a cardio session and really just play it off the recovery. So there was adjustments made like all the time. Yeah. And honestly, during that time is when, in my opinion, you made most of your progress. Yeah. Actually. And I do think a lot of that was because we took so much of, the recovery aspect and how exhausted she was. And we just let her rest, so the stress levels came down, cortisol levels came down, and naturally like her body just, kind of let go. And she just started burning fat.
Yeah, no, definitely during quarantine was when I tightened up the most. Because we started doing, like, I had, like, full-on rest days, like, no cardio, no training.
Just walking.
Yeah. So, I got hormones, irregular cycle, or regular, did you lose your period? So, I missed a few periods. And, like, my prep was weird because I, like, had phases of having, like, more food and filling out, like when my show was canceled, but I also like had phases of being like pretty damn low for me, food and like high cardio. So I would say, I mean, I've been prepping since January and I think I missed 3,
which is pretty good,
cycles, which is pretty good.
And like she said, like food went up and down because of quarantine. And food came down, she lost it maybe 1 cycle. Food came back up, and then leading into her last show, the probably last 2 cycles you missed, I think.
And I will say, like, everyone's super different, and I just know my body, and like the biggest thing that impacts my weight, it's not even, or my cycle, it's not where my weight is at. Like I can get my cycle very lean, like I'm not gonna like maintain even where I'm at now, but it's the amount of food that I'm eating and just like stress on my body. So I think because we were able to, for most of it, really focus on like recovery, stress, and food, and refeeds. I was able to like eat a decent amount just because of like I didn't really lose it. How many hours would you say you train per week in prep and then in improvement? My training is like the same in prep as in improvement season. What I will say is like the same thing that is going to help you build muscle in an improvement season is going to help you keep it around during prep. So I'd say there's probably like 2 weeks of prep where I felt like weaker. The rest of the time I was literally like hitting PRs. And that was like a big focus.
Oh, that was everything we focused on, you know? I don't know if you want to talk about it, but I know Lexi's previous prep, she had to do quite a bit of cardio. So our focus this time around, was to really hone in on the training. And we were in an off season for a couple months before we started the prep. And that's when we just focused just on training. Because if you take your training to where, you should take it to, you shouldn't have to do that much cardio. Obviously you want to keep the muscle around, so some people say, or some people do high volume, low weight. No, we keep it absolutely the same. If anything, as a show gets closer, exercises may be modified just to pick some safer exercises And then, if anything, maybe 1 to 2 working sets will be pulled out towards the end. But that's about it.
Yeah. So training was the same, and my cardio was definitely less than my last prep. I think the most we got was 45, like 45 fasted and then 45 post training. Do you want to do both of these?
Yeah, we do both of those.
Favorite meal you ate while on your meal plan? Either my meal 1 or meal 2, which are both cream of rice. But honestly, I really like all of them. And I feel like I said that in like most of my vlogs. I was like, I really like all my meals. The only meal that wasn't exciting to me was my meal 6, or meal 5. I guess my last meal, which is literally just protein isolate and nut butter. But like, I love my jazzy rice. I like my cod. I like my chicken. But cream of rice. It's in my heart. What's your favorite meal of your meal plan?
Mine's cream of rice.
Yeah.
ISO, cream of rice, nut butter.
Okay. Next question. Can you still build glutes if you're eating above maintenance but then run 6 times a week?
I think this is all individual dependent and also how much you're running. Because, you'll see people build glutes. It depends on genetics. It depends how much you're eating in a surplus or maintenance. But I've seen people run 3 miles a day and build glutes. And then I've seen people do no cardio and, struggle a little bit more. And I think it comes down to genetics, comes down to how hard you train, comes down to execution. But I do think that if you are eating, in a maintenance to, let's say, account for the running. So obviously, like if you're eating at maintenance and then you're running a bunch, you're probably in a deficit. But if you're eating at a maintenance for the running, I do think you can grow your glutes. It's going to take intense training. It's going to take precise execution and
making sure you recover too.
Yeah, making sure you recover because that's going to be huge, especially running 6 times a week.
With running, yeah. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest thing, I think. Okay. Why deplete just to fill out? Why not keep steady carb intake and stay full?
So, if this is referring to Lexi's prep, it's kind of what we were already saying. The purpose wasn't really to deplete her at all. We did a reverse actually in the middle of prep, which actually got her harder. And then got a little bit softer, and as soon as we were like 4 weeks out, we lowered for like 2 weeks and then started increasing again. And that was just to get her at the level of condition we wanted to get her to. And then, like I said, her metabolism just started increasing after that. And we had to just feed her. And it happens. It's, plan A, B, C, and D. And that's when we had to take a different route and feed her heavier.
Yeah. How do you deal with prep and being a type 1 diabetic? I'm type 1 as well, and I'm curious. So I think it's not as confusing as a lot of people think. So being type 1 diabetic, I have to give insulin for the carbs that I eat. So every time I bulk, people ask like how I eat so many carbs if I'm diabetic. When I cut, people ask how I do low carb if I'm diabetic. And I end up just giving less insulin. Now, there's a lot of other stuff that goes into it, just in terms of when you're bulking, you get more insulin resistant. When you're cutting, you get much more insulin sensitive. So I might need to change my dosage and stuff a decent amount. But that's something that, I just keep a very close eye on. I have doctors that keep a close eye on. And obviously, the other thing is, as you get smaller, your body needs less insulin. Mm-hmm. But what I always say too is my health always comes first. So there were a few instances where I did get low. You saw me on one of them. Yeah, and I literally would just be I had honey. And I would still just eat my meal plan and because I'm not gonna die, so I can stick to my meal plan.
And I think the biggest thing is, especially with type 1 diabetic, is just monitor it. Have carbohydrates on hand and eat enough, of course.
Yeah.
Probably not smart going a ketogenic style, but
yeah. So I know we kept carbs.
Yeah, we kept carbs
especially around
high.
Training.
Yeah, definitely around training. That's huge. And for Lexi, she just did better on higher carb and a little bit lower fat. So we had an issue maybe once or twice doing cardio in the morning, and she had honey on hand for that. But besides that, nothing really.
Yeah. My highest and lowest weight during prep, I started around 138, 139.
139.
So around there. My lowest weight on prep, I think, was like 113 point something, like high 113s. But my stage weight was like 117.
117, around there.
So I'm maintaining and want to continue. Is one free meal per week okay or detrimental?
If you're maintaining, you want to continue. I think one free meal a week is completely okay. I give everyone who I'm coaching who's maintaining one free meal a week. But of course, like if you're doing that and you're at maintenance, your maintenance should probably account for that. Obviously, if you're prepping, that's completely different. If you're in an off season, it's totally okay.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is I think it actually can be really, really helpful if you're not if you're prepping, but like just with adherence to your diet to like have one meal a week.
I agree.
And it is normal for your weight to go up for like a day or two after, but again, like if you're noticing that every time you have a free meal or a cheat meal, you like gain weight and it doesn't come back down even after a few days, then you might need to like lower your daily intake too.
Lower daily intake deeper.
Yeah. Advice for someone getting over cravings and saying no to certain foods on prep.
So this, in my opinion, is a great mindset topic. And I feel like we've talked about this like a lot lately.
We have.
And the biggest thing is saying no to foods on prep is you just got to be 100% in. I've talked about this. If you follow me, I talked about this a lot. And it's, most people are 95% in. Most people are 95% or below in. And what happens when you are at that level is you will see food and you will get those cravings and you will get those temptations. And those temptations will get even stronger to the point you become almost ravenous and you can't even control your mind. There's a chemical signaling going on, dopamine response from all of that food, and you just want it. Now, if you're 100% in, you won't even notice it. You will never notice it. You can ask Lexi, she's 100%. You can ask myself. Every prep I do, I'm 100% in. Nothing else simply matters, and I actually don't get any cravings during prep whatsoever because of that. Yeah. And the biggest thing I can say is enjoy your food. A lot of people, like, I'll notice they'll just take chicken breast and they'll just pop it in the oven. If your food's just plain and tastes like crap all the time, you're probably going to get some cravings tasting food.
Yeah, so make your food taste good. And that's, I think, the biggest thing is, like, I really didn't struggle with cravings during prep. And I think it's because I was just so hyper-focused on, like, I wanted that end result, right? And so, like, you just don't.
Just doesn't
like
matter.
It's like it just like your brain doesn't go there, if that makes sense. When you're 100% in, it's just like you just don't think about it. Now, what I will say is, like, when you're super dieted, you do get more food focused.
Yeah.
And I noticed that. But it wasn't like, oh, I just want to go, like, eat everything. It was just like, I want more of what I'm already eating. But again, it's like, it's not an option. Like, I'm just not going to do it, you know?
Exactly. Another thing I will say is if you're getting cravings on prep, if you're changing your diet, once you change your diet, it becomes that much easier.
Yeah.
And the cravings become that much more tempting. And then once you go down that slippery slope, it just becomes easier and easier and easier. And like I said, if you're 100% in, don't even do it once, and chances are they're going to subside. Yeah.
When reverse dieting, how often should you increase macros?
So honestly, it depends on, once again,
it depends.
It depends on the person. If you're reverse dieting and you're doing it the right way, best thing I would say is increase, give it a week, 7 to 10 days, you know. If there's no gain, you notice like minimal fat gain, maybe a drop in weight even, go ahead and bump them up a little more. Depends on the purpose. I know Lexi, I can give her 50 carbs off the bat once we start, and then we just go from there. But for females, I like to say if it's someone who you know has a pretty strong metabolism.
What's your favorite part of competing for you?
I think it's
What?
Oh, what's my favorite part of competing?
Yeah.
Honestly, as cliche as it sounds, I just love the process.
Yeah.
There is a level that I get to where everything just sucks. And when I get to that level, there's always just a smile on my face because I know that I'm doing things that other people aren't doing. And for me, that gives me so much satisfaction. It makes me want to go even harder. And you can ask Lexi, she's seen me in the gym where I'm 1 week out and crushing PRs. You know, if you see me in the gym, you'll never see me looking tired. I may be tired, but as soon as that door opens to my car and I walk in, the flame is lit and I'm going. And that's what I love about it is creating the mental toughness to do what other people can't do or won't do.
I love that. Yeah. And I was going to say, for me, it's like the actual process of prep and like the struggle of it and like the really fucking hard days. And like I remember I like talked to you about that. I was like, my like least favorite part of prep is like the actual show day. Like my fucking favorite is like the shittiest days of prep.
Those are the days you remember.
Those are the days you remember.
Mm-hmm. That's a pretty one, actually.
This one?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you fasted cardio during prep? Would you want to prioritize energy for your lift?
So this is a really good topic in my opinion. So when I give someone fasted, a lot of times it's for exactly what that question was asked, is prioritizing energy for your lift. So a lot of times if people have, 45 minutes of cardio and that's all they're doing, I'll throw it in the morning and then into the evening when they lift, all they have to worry about is their lift.
Yeah.
And they can just focus on it, get in, crush it, get out. And I notice I almost always, anecdotally see a better response off that.
Yeah, and I liked doing fasted cardio for that reason because, and I talked about this with you guys, like I don't want to go in the gym and be there for like 3.5 hours because I'm lifting and doing cardio and posing. And the other big thing that I noticed for me was whenever I did my cardio, especially when it was longer post, I did not recover as well as when I was doing it fasted.
Yeah.
So I think when I did it fasted, I actually had more energy for my lift because think about it, you're doing your cardio, I'd eat a couple meals and then I'd go train versus going into the gym for training and like knowing you have cardio after. My lifts were almost like 90% instead of 100. Okay, do you have any clients on anti-anxiety / depression, I'm assuming medication, who struggle to cut?
Yes, I'm not really sure if there's asking about medication or if it's just anxiety, depression. But anytime there's anxiety, depression, they're especially highly strung individuals with a lot of anxiety, you're gonna have trouble cutting. There's no way around that. Cortisol is just gonna get right through the roof. You're gonna be in a very sympathetic state, meaning a very stressed state, where your body simply does not want to lose fat. And the best advice I can give for someone like this is breathe, meditate, and walk. Not even joking. There are some supplements out there. Feel free to DM one of us and we can shoot them your way. By no means are we medical professionals, but
and I'm gonna put all of his info in the description box too.
But breathing, walking, and meditating are all parasympathetic activities, and that is what's gonna help drive you out of that sympathetic state, lower your cortisol, and then hopefully you can get to a point where that cortisol is constantly a little bit lower and you can start losing fat. And that's, like I said, doing more parasympathetic activities where your heart rate goes down, you're working on breathing. It could be walking on the beach, it could be walking through nature, it could be meditating outside, it could be doing yoga. Something like that is going to help tremendously.
Good advice. Any recommendations on improving recovery when you have minimal sleep?
This one's a tough one because, again, everyone's different. I know for me, if I have minimal sleep, my recovery is just very off. Yeah. And the best advice I can give would be going back to that parasympathetic, sympathetic vagal tones, and just finding yourself as much as possible into a parasympathetic state. Again, the less stressed state. That intra-workout nutrition, post-workout nutrition, pre-workout nutrition is going to be very crucial during these times. Naps, if you can get them in, do help. And the biggest thing is you probably have to take more rest days.
So just prioritizing recovery in other areas. Do you utilize intensity techniques such as drop sets, etc. during training?
I do. However, once again, it depends on the individual and the recovery, also where they're at in a prep. So I'm an advocate on not doing, again, a super high amount of volume in prep. And something like a lot of drop sets, a lot of intensifiers are something that I'm going to use in an off season for the most part, where you have the food and you have the recovery to supplement it. In a prep, especially leading to the end, I want my athletes to look very hard and full. And so what we're doing there is we do a lot of straight sets, and we go to failure or past failure, which would be, an intensifier through the means of a force rep. But besides that, for the most part, drop sets, giant sets are mainly done in the off season.
Yeah, and that's like a couple sets per workout, like maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
But I know for me, it was like the last few weeks, maybe even month. It was all straight sets, no drop sets, no super sets, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is that it?
I think that's it.
Okay. So, you guys asked a lot of good questions. I definitely would love to do another one of these if you guys enjoy it. So if you guys have any questions for Will, nutrition, training, whatever, for either of us to answer, we're down to do, we could do a fun one too.
Yeah.
We're down to do whatever. But drop them below in the comments. And as always, comment, share, subscribe. I'm going to put all of Will's info, his email, his Instagram, his email list in the description box. So if you guys want more brain gains, make sure that you follow him on all those platforms. But with that, we're going to end this vlog and see you guys in the next one.